Is this it? Is this all there is to my life? She slowly sunk deeper into her couch with tears in her eyes, clenching her couch material ever so tight. This is a scene from a conversation I had 6 years ago with a friend of mine. Caroline had worked her entire life to break the generational limitations, or as some may call it, the generational curses that had bound her family for years. Her whole identity was wrapped around being the first to have ever done it, the pathfinder that was going to break the boundaries of her family. First to graduate, check. First to buy a car, check. First to buy a house, yep, you guessed it, check. She had done it. She had broken the proverbial limitations that had bound her family for years. And a moment that was meant to be joyous and filled with jubilee was instead filled with questions. What now? Who am I now? And what does the rest of my life look like now? You see, my friend wasn't aware of it at the time, but she was in crisis. To be more specific, she was facing an identity crisis. The Oxford Dictionary defines an identity crisis as a period in time where our identity is insecure due to a change in a desired aim or a change in your role in society. In 2015, the Ketch School of Medicine did a study, and they realized that 35% of teenagers had suffered with identity issues at some point in their lives. And over 95% of these teenagers said they faced issues with insecurity growing up. You see, whether we like to admit it or not, at some point in our lives, we all face identity crisis. Whether you're like my friend, or maybe you're a 19-year-old straight-A student facing failure for the first time in university, or perhaps you're a 40-year-old father and husband at the brink of a failed marriage and wondering to yourself, who am I outside of my titles? Or maybe you're that family golden child, and yet you finally made your first mistake, left you with a lifelong consequence, and has changed the way your family sees you. Or perhaps like me, once upon a time, a 14-year-old boy who had spent his whole life dreaming and planning a future with his father, only to wake up one day to a call that he's deceased. We all face it at some point in time. And the truth of the matter is, it impacts us all differently. A study that I recently read says that in adulthood, a lot of us, our identity is wrapped around the traumas that we faced. What's your trauma? How did it impact your identity? You see, the truth of the matter is, growing up, my father and my grandmother were so close to me. These were the two people in life that validated my existence and validated my voice. I remember my dad would wake up on a Saturday morning and he would ask me, what did you dream today? And afternoons, whenever I'd go and play, I'd run back home, and no matter what my grandmother was doing, she would stop every single thing that she was doing just to listen to all my many exciting adventures that I had to tell her. So you can only imagine how devastated I was when they both met an unexpected end. There was no longer anybody to wake me up on a Saturday morning and ask me about my dreams. No longer did I have anybody to run to tell my great adventures. And like a shadow, I was present but absent in the lives of those around me. It didn't help that I was always the shortest person in the room, so very easy to overlook. But the truth of the matter is the trauma of losing these people that validated me crippled my own identity. Because what used to be a loud, excited little boy turned into a shy, insecure young man. Now, trauma can hit us all in different ways. What I just described is how past traumas impacted me. The second way that these things can impact us is through social norms, right? The biggest social driver of social norms these days is social media. We all know it. I mean, when I was in primary school, wearing three-quarter pants wasn't the most fashionable thing. In fact, it was a sign that you came from a poor background, probably outgrew your pants, and your parents couldn't afford a new one. But lo and behold, with the move of social media, wearing three-quarter pants these days, pretty fashionable. In fact, with the right loafers, you could pull it off in your next fashion reel. Social media has revolutionized how we define social norms, but it's also revolutionized how we define ourselves, how we define our identities, and even how we define our successes. A professor from the School of Pharmacology in Oxford University recently said, "It's almost as if we live in a world that's not real, but a world that is defined by others, or defined by whether people can click on you." I mean, think about it. We all take the perfect picture, right? Spend hours on different AI platforms trying to find the perfect caption. And then you spend hours going back and forth trying to see, how did it do? But I wonder how you feel when all that effort, all that work, nobody liked it, or they didn't react to it the way you thought they would. How's your identity then? How's your self-esteem then? Now, I know what you're thinking. Yes, you dealt with trauma of losing your father and your grandmother. I mean, you could have gone to therapy for that. True. But the reality of it is, when these traumas was impacting how I saw myself, I wasn't taking note of it. It was all happening in the background, or incognito, if you're an IT guy. And the same with social media. Most of the time when social media or social norms changes, we don't notice the change. I mean, can you tell me the exact day your finger learned that pattern that automatically leads you to Instagram, even though all you were doing is checking the time? A lot of these changes happen in osmosis, in the background. And that's why I believe we need to make sure that we no longer become victims standing in the sidelines of our past trauma or social norms. We need to become active participants in making sure that we take our life back. I mean, why did you write yourself out of the story and the solutions of your own life and leave it to your past traumas or the social norms of others? And I truly believe that a journey of life coaching is the journey that can help us interrupt this process that's happening in the background and take back the power of our lives and stop living lives that are defined by where you come from or defined by the social comfortable norms of others. An international journal of evidence-based coaching and mentoring recently found that life coaching is able to enhance courage, reduce fear and anxiety, especially in the lives of those whose professional and personal development has been limited. I mean, think about it. When you decided to play sports, did you try to wing it? Or was it better with a coach? Or when you finally decided, you need that Bali body, you went to the gym, was it easier on your own, better with an instructor? Now, if we needed professionals in these areas of life, how much more in the greatest conundrum that we all face each and every day called life? Why are you winging that? To share a personal story of mine, in 2016 I was diagnosed with depression. I remember walking down the cold aisles of the pharmacist, handed in my prescription, and as I looked up, she looked at me with such a concerned face, and she asked, "What could be so bad that you needed such a heavy dose?" It was in that moment that I realized I too was in crisis, and I needed help. That moment led me into my own personal walk of life coaching, a journey that changed and impacted my life forever. You see, oftentimes we are so emotionally invested in our traumas and in our experiences that we often don't see the way out. And for me, the journey of life coaching was the journey that showed me the way out. Stephen Furtick once said, "Your perspective can either be a prison or it can be a passport." The way you look at life can either bind you and keep you as a victim, or it can alter your perspective and unleash the better version of you. And that's what life coaching did for me. I remember with every session that I had, there were two critical things that my life coach ensured that I had: perspective and tools. You see, he made me realize that with every single thing that I was going through, I was responding based on how I saw it. So if he could alter my perspective, that means my response would be different. And the beauty that I saw in that process is that because we are so emotionally invested in our traumas, we often need a third person to show us a different side. So with every coaching session that I had, that's exactly what he did. He altered my perspective and showed me a different side. Not only did he offer me perspective, but he also gave me tools. You see, yes, there were sessions where I cried. There were sessions where we had what Oprah would call aha moments. And there were sessions where we had deep, meaningful conversations, or as my younger crowd will say, DMCs. But it didn't matter how deep emotional the session was. When I left, there was still darkness to go and fight. And the tools that my life coach gave me were the spades that I used to dig myself out of those rabbit holes. He gave me tools to understand how to deal with my emotions, tools to understand how to deal with time management, energy management, so that even though I'm walking through this journey of healing, I can still be effective. The truth of the matter is, therapy helped me deal with where I came from. And it gave me understanding to why I got to where I got. But what life coaching gave me was a vision for a better future, but not just aimlessly. It gave me tools to approach it each and every single day. I remember with each session, my coach would say to me, and he would always remind me, "Thabo, remember, you can't talk yourself out of something you behaved yourself into. If it took behavior to get here, it's going to take behavior to get out." And that's why the tools were so important. That's why today I'm saying, perhaps it's time to stop whatever you're doing. Stop trying to wing it. Yes, I know experience is the best teacher, but it doesn't always have to be yours. And maybe take on this journey of life coaching, where you can have someone who can help you make sense of yourself, show you a different perspective of what you've been going through and the pain that you've been through, but most importantly, give you the blueprint to strive for a better version of yourself. deserve better.